All right, let's cut right through all the noise around generative AI. If you're a project manager, the last thing you need is more hype. What you really need is clarity, and you need control. So in this explainer, we're going to turn this super complex topic into a simple, powerful tool that you can actually use. Let's get into it. I mean, you've heard all this stuff, right? People are calling it revolutionary, mind-blowing. Some even say it's almost human. And look, that stuff makes for a great headline, but it's not exactly helpful when you've got a deadline breathing down your neck. It makes AI sound like this big, uncontrollable force of nature. And that's the thing. As a project manager, you don't need hype. You need control. So that's what we're here to do. Let's just forget all the science fiction for a minute. What we're going to do is give you a really practical way to understand this stuff, and even more importantly, a way to guide the technology. The goal here is to make it work for you, not the other way around. Okay, section 1, what AI really is. We're going to take it from this mysterious black box to a simple tool you can understand. So let's just start by taking AI off its pedestal, okay? We're going to replace that black box feeling with a simple, reliable mental model, one you can use every single day. So the very first thing you've got to grasp is just how different this is from the software you're used to. Think about it. Traditional software is all about hard-coded rules. If a user clicks X, then the software does Y. Simple, predictable. But generative AI, it doesn't really follow strict rules like that. It's more like a pattern machine. It looks at just enormous amounts of data, learns the patterns, and then creates something totally new based on what it's seen. Okay, and this right here, this is the crucial point. Seriously, if you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. Generative AI is not thinking, it's not reasoning, it is, at its core, a world-class prediction engine. All it's doing, constantly, is asking itself one simple question. Based on all the stuff I've been trained on and the prompt you just gave me, what is the most likely next word? That's it. It's just predicting the next piece of the puzzle. And once you understand that it's just a prediction machine, everything else clicks into place. It perfectly explains the two sides of the AI coin. On the one hand, this prediction ability is why it's so incredibly fluent with language and why it's so amazing at spotting patterns. But on the other hand, because it's only predicting and not actually understanding anything, it can be confidently, plausibly, and totally 100% wrong. Okay, so let's move on to the AI toolkit. It's all about knowing its strengths and weaknesses. This really helps us build a practical toolkit. And look, like any tool you use, a Gantt chart, a Kanban board, whatever, the absolute key is knowing when to use it, and just as importantly, when to leave it in the toolbox. And the lines are actually pretty clear here. Think of AI as your new best friend for getting started. It's fantastic for whipping up first drafts, brainstorming ideas, summarizing long documents, or finding themes in a bunch of text. But, and this is a big but, it is not your go-to for final accuracy, for understanding deep context, or for making judgment calls. That part? That is still 100% on you. You've probably heard this buzzword, right? Hallucinations. It sounds super dramatic, maybe even a little scary, but it connects directly back to that mental model we just talked about. See, an AI hallucinates when it just doesn't have a clear pattern to follow from its training data. So what does it do? It predicts the most plausible sounding filler it can come up with. It's not trying to lie to you or deceive you, it's literally just trying to complete the pattern you gave it, even if that means making something up. All right, next section, how to guide your AI, which is all about the power of the prompt. And honestly, this brings us to what might be the single most important skill you can develop for using this stuff. If the AI is just a pattern completing engine, well then, the quality of the pattern you give it, your prompt, is what determines, well, pretty much everything. I absolutely love this analogy because it's so true. Think of the AI as a brand new team member. A very capable, very fast, but very literal team member. You would never walk up to a new hire and say, hey, just handle the report, and then walk away, right? Of course not. You'd give them background, you'd tell them who the audience is, you'd specify the format. You have to treat the AI with that exact same level of clear direction. So let's look at a classic before example. Let's say you give the AI this prompt. Just create a project status report. That's it. What do you think you're going to get back from that? Yeah, exactly what you'd expect. Something completely generic, vague, and honestly, pretty useless. You're going to get a template filled with all this generic, happy talk fluff. Why? Because it doesn't know a thing about your project, your stakeholders, or the real problems you're facing. It's useless because you gave it absolutely nothing to work with.
But now, look at the difference. The after. Here, you're not just asking for a report. You're giving it a role, act as a senior PM. You're giving it context, a software project 2 weeks behind schedule, a specific problem due to vendor delays. You're telling it exactly what sections to include and who it's for. See? You've provided a rich, detailed pattern for it to complete.
And what do you know? The result is night and day. Now you get something specific, something actionable, something actually valuable. You get a solid first draft that you can now take and refine. And the key thing to realize is that the difference wasn't the AI's intelligence. It was your guidance. You were the one in the director's chair. So really, this is what your job starts to look like in a world with AI. It's not about being replaced, not at all. It's about your role being elevated. You become the guide who sets the direction with your prompts. You're the reviewer who critically looks at the output. You're the validator who fact-checks everything for accuracy and context. And most importantly, you are the final decision maker who applies human judgment and takes accountability.
And that leads us to probably the most critical point of this entire conversation. What AI simply can't do. The stuff that makes your role completely irreplaceable. Look, no matter how good this technology gets, an AI is never going to take accountability for a missed deadline. It's not going to show real leadership in a crisis. It can't feel empathy for a team member who's struggling. It can't make a tough ethical call or navigate the tricky office politics of your organization. All of these uniquely human skills, they haven't been replaced. They've just become more valuable than ever before. So let's just leave the whole idea of replacement behind. That's not the interesting conversation. Instead, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Where can getting a strong first draft from an AI free up your time and your mental energy to focus on the bigger picture? To focus on the leadership, the strategy, the human connections that really define great project management? That right there is the real revolution.